afternoon and good evening to you. Welcome again to TFH, the Full 100. Today is Tuesday, the 21st of April, and things are getting really serious. People are reverting to type. Today's a very, very serious show, my friends. The world's taking its usual dark turn, its usual blame immigrants turn to every right-wing government in the world, which is what they normally turn to when things get really hot and uncomfortable for them. They blame it on immigrants. However, before I get into the show properly, I want to start my show today with a video from China, which shows you how they beat the coronavirus. I'm starting the show with this because governments are starting to send out subliminal messaging, which to me is very dangerous. Okay, so before I get into it, let me start by showing you a video from Wuhan, somebody who recorded a diary for Channel 4 on the 70 plus days of lockdown, serious lockdown in Wuhan. By the way, I just want to advise you guys, Wuhan's open right now. However, they're still, even though they're open, there are more locked down than we are in the UK. So without further ado, let's get to it. Have a look at this video from China.
Insisted today over the scale of the outbreak in Wuhan, the city where it all started. This after admitting also today that the number of virus deaths there has been 50% higher than originally reported. Channel 4 News has received exclusive video diaries filmed by a young woman called Yinan, who lived through Wuhan's lockdown.
能做的其实就是等待吧，等待通知，等待解封的那一天。
Is Wuhan's past our present, and could Wuhan's present become our future? This is Yinan's lockdown diary, filmed for Channel 4 News from beginning to end, all 76 days of it.
等待更多人被治愈的那一天，等待不停的有好消息传来的那一天。就我们家客厅，每天就是把电视放着，轮播这个新闻频道。基本上每天都待在家里，除了上次出去买了一趟菜之外呢，就没有出过门了。
A few short weeks ago, a population reduced to hermit status and deserted cities still seemed alien to the UK. And then we too became Wuhan.
这条街上呢，各种店都已经关门了，没有人了。现在感觉现在还挺多人的，你说大家都在城中。
There are some parallels with our experience. The supermarket packed with panic shoppers on day 3 of the lockdown. And just like here, the authorities in Wuhan clocked the lack of social distancing and the continuing movement of people. So they decided to act. 1 month in, and the lockdown in Wuhan became locked in. Homes were cut off. Forget Ocado, here food supplies were delivered and distributed like rations by volunteers organized within housing estates.
然后每个居民不同的快递包裹会堆放在这里，大家就是可以来拿。这个是拍摄的时候无意中的一个团菜的来了，然后现在他们手上会一一通知居民分批下来拿。差不多就是这个样子，因为楼下的站点的人是不让出这个黄色的，所以可能我拍不到就是特别多的街景吧。然后路上的情况没有什么车。
By now, Yinan had started work as a community volunteer. Her job, to take the temperature of everyone in her apartment complex. Those with high temperatures were given a red status and immediately quarantined, then sent to outside hospitals for further testing and treatment.
联系过，昨天是去联系的。
All this personal health data is access to the popular WeChat social media app used by over 1 billion Chinese. And everything on WeChat is also seen by the government in real time. highly intrusive real-time tracking of a largely compliant population. That was the key to the eventual lifting of the lockdown in Wuhan. Days the lockdown was finally over. With her health status listed as green on her phone, Yinan was allowed back to work.
4月8号解除黎汉中楼管控措施之后的各项工作，强调要坚持防控不松懈，确保疫情不反弹。新华社小学
Post-lockdown Wuhan is in many ways stricter than the UK in our existing lockdown.
That's how they got out of it. The reason I started the show with that is because the US, with Trump cheerleading, is beating down and whipping up immigration sentiments with his usual 30% of redneck followers and fake news believers. In the UK, we're already starting to tell people subliminally since yesterday that face masks are not going to help. If you want to save the NHS, you don't need to worry about face masks. Having seen that video now, can you see how worried I am? Before I show you the next video, I'd like to make an apology. Any reputable news channel, any reputable truth teller should always never be embarrassed to say when they made a mistake. I made a mistake in my video, which I put out yesterday regarding giving the Earth a breather. I do apologize to Greta Thunberg. I called her Danish. She's actually Swedish. So my apologies, Miss Thunberg. I now have corrected myself, as every reputable truth teller should not be embarrassed to do. Right, so take a look at a second video, and this video is Trump and what he's doing now, causing more deaths. Take a look, please.
President Trump claims he will sign an executive order temporarily suspending immigration into the United States, and yet the president continues to insist that he wants states to reopen their economies. Joining us now, CNN White House correspondent John Harwood. John, leave the questions about intellectual consistency aside for just 1 second. An interesting view of John Harwood there. Focus on the what and the why is going on here with this president's statement.
Well, you have to divorce it from public health considerations because that's not what's driving this. You can tell, and the president's made clear, he's spending a lot of his time watching television, seeing the harsh judgments of his performance, and trying to figure out a way to escape blame for that. Now, it is long past time when a cutoff of people coming into the United States would make any difference in this pandemic. The virus is already here and has spread rapidly throughout the United States. But what the president is doing is appealing to members of his base. Remember who his base is. It's disproportionately white voters of lesser education, especially conservative Christians, especially in small towns and rural areas that are less densely populated. Those are areas that have been less hard hit because of the less density. And they're people who supported President Trump because they were concerned that their country, the country that they thought they grew up in, is changing. The number of white Christians in the United States has declined from 80% 50 years ago to less than half now. So the president, by announcing this move, suggests that foreigners have some contribution to this problem. This is consistent with efforts to blame the WHO, efforts to blame Europe, efforts to blame China. It is not about public health considerations, and we don't even know if it has any practical ramifications either, John, because many of the immigration-related activities in the United States have been closed down because of coronavirus. But the president late last night was feeling the brunt of criticism from governors, from voters, and so last night he announced this on Twitter with no backup information whatsoever.
Now, over to the UK. I just want to show those differences, okay? Now, here's the UK's videos, interviews that they've been using our reputable news channels, so should be reputable news channels. Channel 4 is the only one who's challenging them on these. The BBC isn't challenging them, Sky News isn't challenging them, but they are slowly but surely, firstly saying we're waiting. If you watch my videos the other day, one of my videos the other day, saying how shouldn't this common sense advice be protect yourselves right now, because there is too much we do not know about this virus. If there's too much you don't know about a food, Do you say to people, we don't know much about the food. However, it's okay to eat the food. Just make sure you take some painkillers afterwards, or some stomach settling medication afterwards. Would you say that to people? This is what our government has been saying now, and this is where they've got to. Take a look.
This morning, the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is under fresh scrutiny for his response to the coronavirus pandemic, even as he himself recovers from his personal battle with the virus. CNN's Max Foster is live at Windsor Castle this morning with the very latest on this. Max.
Yeah, John, so the scrutiny on the government is all about its planning. Did it ever plan for a pandemic properly? Take the hospitals, for example. They're currently running out of gowns and masks. They're either having to ration them or reuse them. It's a desperate situation, and Boris Johnson's government is getting the blame.
It's hard to find words to express my debt.
While British Prime Minister Boris Johnson recovers from the coronavirus a week after leaving hospital, questions are being raised about how prepared his government was to handle the crisis that's killing around 800 Brits a day. Though the government says they started ramping up purchases at the end of January, they now admit they're facing critical shortages of basic items like gowns. A shipment of 400,000 gowns was due to arrive from Turkey on Sunday, but the government said it had been delayed.
I think we all recognise the enormous strain that's been placed on the whole system. And we also recognise that right across the globe, people are actually trying to get the same items of PPE from quite a limited number of suppliers.
An investigation by the Sunday Times claims years of government cost-cutting has left supplies of personal protective equipment dangerously low. The paper accused ministers of ignoring warnings about the virus, of complacency, and of being in a perilously poor state of readiness for the pandemic. In a strongly worded rebuttal to the Sunday Times report, a government spokesman said, "This article contains a series of falsehoods and errors and actively misrepresents the enormous amount of work which was going on in government at the earliest stages of the coronavirus outbreak." Doctors and nurses say they desperately need more PPE and will run out any day. But as anger over lack of medical supplies grows in the UK, medics carry on with what they have and face dark days as they care for the dying.
All of a sudden now, being in that environment where, it's just us with the patient is very difficult.
Simon Clark says at the moment there is no scientific steer that rolling out face masks to the rest of us is right, and that supply must be prioritised for NHS and frontline workers.
We will always be guided by the advice that emerges from the scientific community about the wearing of face masks, and indeed all other questions. At the moment, there is no consensus that this is the right thing to do. We are focused on making sure that we get proper supplies of PPE, both to the NHS and indeed to all parts of the front line in the fight against coronavirus. As I say, at this point, we do not have a clear scientific steer that it would be right to broaden this to the general population. And we would obviously bear in mind the representations from NHS providers about the need to prioritise supply to where it can do the most good.
Of face masks could be put at risk if the government starts advising the public to wear them. That is the warning from hospital bosses, as the government's scientific advisors are to meet later today to discuss whether the public should be urged to wear masks.
I'm not stopping there. This is Brazil. Have a look at Brazil.
In Sao Paulo, Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro joined a group of protesters in Brasilia on Sunday to demand an end to quarantine measures meant to slow the spread of COVID-19. He didn't wear a mask and, in fact, coughed several times while addressing the crowd of a couple hundred. Some of the protesters were also urging military intervention to close down both Congress and the Supreme Court, which have supported social isolation measures. Bolsonaro called his supporters patriots and said that their freedom, their liberty must be guaranteed. Now, Bolsonaro has clashed repeatedly with governors as they closed schools and all but essential businesses, insisting that the economic fallout from those measures could cause more damage than the virus itself.
And just so you know, I've just shown you the US, the UK, even though the UK is not really, the UK do their things kind of subliminal. They're not as loud and brash as the Trumps and the president of Brazil are. But I've just showed you those three. I want to show you a fourth country, totally different faith, Iran. Do you think we're the only ones carrying fake news in the world? Iran's a right-wing government. They're an Islamic government. In Iran, can I tell you who we here think China invented this? Many of my black friends and many of you that listen to fake news think China invented this in the lab and it escaped. Do you know what they think in Iran? In Iran, they think the US made this and it escaped. That's the fake news in Iran. Okay? So you're not the only people that spread fake news. They spread fake news in Iran as well. And guess who they spread fake news about? They spread fake news about the USA. Take a look at this. I might be laughing, but this is very, very serious, okay? There's a reason I showed you these four governments to you. Those four governments are all right-wing governments. They're all right-wing governments. Right-wing governments are deadly and dangerous at times like this. Do you know why? I'll give you some facts. We all know Germany has done brilliantly. We all know the UK is trying to disassociate themselves, make themselves smaller than Germany. Please don't compare us to Germany. We're much smaller. Our industry is much smaller, okay? The reason they can say that is because Germany is doing great. I've told you guys about New Zealand. At the heights of this, they had 1 death. The last I checked, they had 11 deaths. We all know Canada has done brilliantly. We all know Spain and Italy got set upon before they knew what hit them. The only unlucky thing for them two countries is that they're at the bottom of Europe. They're at the south of Europe. So the way this virus has traveled and the way immigrants travel, the virus traveled like immigrants. The reason Italy and Spain suffered a lot is whereas we in the UK and France and up north and the US, which had 3 weeks notice before it hit them from us, we had 3 weeks before it hit us from Italy and Spain. Now, the reason they got hit that bad is because, like I said, it woke Europe up when it was hitting them. So we got woken up watching them suffer. They didn't have so they're a bit unlucky. But you know what? With the unluckiness that they had, they actually done fantastically well. France, we know, apologized the other day to his public. President Macron apologized to the French people to say, yeah, we were slow to act. And I apologize. And we are doing better. We're doing everything we can, but we were slow to act. This is an admission that hasn't come from any right-wing government who's already been messing up. Trump's blaming everybody. Now he's switched to blaming immigrants. Boris, they've continuously denied to say, no, we've done everything possible. No, we did everything possible. We've been procuring equipment and PPE since January. Where are they today? End of April, we still don't have them. And yet they still can't come out and tell you guys that they are sorry. Let me tell you what runs right through all the governments that are doing well and the governments that are doing poorly. And I'm telling you this, guys, so that you guys are aware, because the public from time immemorial have been making the same mistakes over and over and over again. Which is why the ruling classes are very comfortable the less informed you are. The more informed you are, the more they worry. Countries that are informed, they don't vote people like these into power. Trump could never get into power in New Zealand, in Germany, in France, right? The far right tried to get into power in France. They made grounds, but they didn't make it. This country can elect a Trump. I guarantee you that, because they are not informed enough. This platform is set out to inform you. Now, let me run through governments. Try and tick this off as I'm mentioning it. Germany, we know they done well, right? Left-wing government. New Zealand, they done well, right? Labour government, left. Brazil, the madman who you saw egging on his crowd to protest against the Supreme Court, right? Because it was the Supreme Court who went over him. He was, at the beginning of this whole thing, he was going about shaking hands because he's another Trump. He's another Trump wannabe, okay? So Brazil's leader, who is now out protesting with people, just like Trump is in his White House tweeting and telling people to say to liberate blue states, democratic states. It's a bit like Boris standing on a podium because the mayor of Manchester has locked down Manchester because Boris didn't lock down the country. I'm just giving you an example. Of course he locked down the country, but let's say Boris didn't lock down the country like what Trump did. It's a bit like the mayor of Manchester and the mayor of London locking down London and Manchester and saying, listen, sod you, Boris, we are locking down our cities and we're saving lives. It's like Boris going out to protest outside of Manchester with protesters saying, liberate Manchester, liberate Manchester. Never mind that the measures are saving thousands of lives, okay? That's what the Brazilian the Brazilian president is doing, and that's what Trump is also doing. So Brazil, right wing. Spain, who handled this efficiently with the hand they were dealt, left wing. Italy, who handled this efficiently with the hand they were dealt, left wing. France, who came out, okay, and said we moved a little bit, so I'm going to do better, left wing. USA, right wing, right? The UK, right wing. Iran, right wing. So let's go through the list. I've got a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay? So people, like I keep saying, don't take my word for it. I've just given you information that you probably would not have tolerated. Okay? You would not have kind of put it together with what's going on. It's my job to put it together. These are facts. Go and check what party, what wing of politics runs Germany. What wing of politics runs New Zealand. What wing of politics runs Spain. What wing of politics runs Canada. What wing of politics runs Italy, runs France. And then we know what wing runs the UK. We know Boris is right wing, and Boris's government is gone extreme right. Yeah, Boris is not center right. He's not even a little bit to right to center. Yeah, his whole government is far right. There were a lot of people there retweeting, okay, stuff from Tommy Robinson. There was people in Boris's government, okay, who were affiliated with Trump. There was people in Boris's government after Boris won the election. When Brexit Party, before Boris won the election, when Brexit Party was making a lot of noise, there was people in Boris's government today that were saying Nigel Farage should be brought into the government. That's how normal it is for these people to say things like this. Okay? This is a person who's married to a German that says Germans are a different kind of European to Romanians. That's who members of Boris's government wanted to bring into Boris's government. So Boris's government is extreme right wing. Let's not mess about. There's no kind of saying this in a nice way. Okay, what I'm doing with this show is explaining to you guys how your leadership can account for more deaths or less deaths. Okay, now what's been happening lately? Okay, Trump, as we know, he's been whipping up immigration tensions. Now, yesterday he's brought in a new law because obviously he's someone who watches TV avidly rather than do work. So he watches all the channels. The only reason he watches channels, by the way, is so he can see what's being said about him. So when he sees something that's not right about him, in real time, this guy tweets and says, anyway, that New Day show on CNN, they're losing numbers. I am more popular than them. I mean, who? Let me stop there. Look, so he's whipping up his bad immigration for the next 120 days. Why did he do that? He done that because he's tried blaming the Labour Party, which is the Democrats. He's tried blaming them for Corona. Didn't work. He bigged up China, then blamed China, then bigged up China, then blamed China, then bigged them up. Then he got called out for bigging them up. All the clips where he bigged them up and put them down, bigged them up and put them down. So he turned to the WHO. Then he gets criticized worldwide that this is not a good policy. So he's not been saying much about that lately. So he's turned to the true right-wing gem. that wins them every vote and more votes than they would ever win if they didn't go to that lane, and that's immigration. Guys, there's something I said to a lot of people when the Brexit vote was going on, when people blamed everything on immigrants. Please take this example in. Let me explain. Let me just bring up this example to you guys. If you're a father and a mother, newly married, you buy your first house, it's a 1-bedroom flat. 3 years later, you have your first child, still in the 1-bedroom flat. 2 years after that, so 5 years into your marriage, you have a second child. At this point, most parents make the right move and go into maybe a 2-bedroom house, especially if they got same-sex children, or even if they're different sexes when they're younger, it's not so bad. But if you got 2 same-sex children, yeah, you're gonna sell the 1-bedroom house and buy a 2-bedroom house. So now you got a 2-bedroom house, a lot more comfortable, right, than a family of 4 in a 1-bedroom flat. So you get the 2-bedroom house. It's now a family of 4 in a 2-room house. Mom and dad in one room, the 2 children in the other room. You got the front room, you got the kitchen. Everyone's relatively comfortable because the 2 kids are toddlers at this point. So that's 5 years into the marriage. 5 years later, if you've then had 3 more kids, so you've now gone to a family of 7 instead of a family of 4, but you're still in the 2-bedroom flat, what do you think will happen? It starts to get uncomfortable for people. It starts to get noisy for people. It starts to get, the kids start to get on top of each other's nerves. If mom's home all the time, mom's starting to argue with dad because there's no space. When dad comes home, he's hearing that from mom, he's arguing. Basically, the point is, when you have a family of 4 in a 2-bedroom flat, it's comfortable. When you then have a family of 7 in the same 2-bedroom house, what happens is you're going to get internal fighting. Now, let's say you got a horrible father at the top who, instead of saying the right thing, says to the 2 older ones who were born first, it's the fault of those 2, your 3 younger siblings who came along. I didn't plan for them, but your mom had them. I told your mom we couldn't afford this house, afford a bigger house. I warned mom. I said to her, I don't want these 3 babies. I just wanted the same 2 so we would be comfortable in this house. Imagine if you had a father at the top of the food chain saying that to the first 2 children. What do you think will happen within that family? My point, guys, is you see when these governments, all these right-wing governments have blamed immigration, especially the UK. Let me deal with the UK. Let me not go into any other countries. Because Trump has got his own agendas, his other reasons why. Our UK government, the reason they won the Brexit vote, the reason they got all of you so mad and so upset about foreigners who, if you drilled into the numbers, were contributing far more than they were taking. They're still doing it now. We're still begging them and chartering flights to go get them to help pick up plants. We're still doing that now. Do you know why they turned on immigrants? Guys, they turned on immigrants because they'd failed you. They had failed all of us. Right? When Labour was saying in 2007 when Tony Blair won his last election, and then Gordon Brown took over in 2008, that government from Tony Blair's had allowed a certain number of immigrants in. They weren't doing it fast enough, but they were building far more resources to take in, to accommodate the numbers that we were getting in this country. However, when the Tories took over, they knew they weren't going to do the same thing. They knew that. But they also knew that they couldn't stop, especially immigrants from the EU coming in. They couldn't, because for EU passport holders, we're an open country. So when you can't stop that happening, but you also decided from the very beginning you weren't going to build up your infrastructure, like the father in my example, who from the very beginning should have bought a 4-bedroom house, a 5-bedroom house, had the money to do that. Remember, he bought a 1-bedroom. He made a profit. when he sold it. He bought a 2-bedroom. They now had this 2-bedroom for the next 5 years. They had the money to upgrade to a 4-5-bedroom house, to a 4-bedroom house and build an extension at the back. Whatever the case might be. He had the money to do that. Just like the British government could have found the money to expand our infrastructure. All those cities, Southampton, where you didn't have, where you felt like you were swarmed. The words they used to use, not my words. Where you felt like you were swarmed. All the government needed to do was all these hot spots where the immigrants lived is build infrastructure to accommodate them. Okay? That's all they had to do. Build new houses, build a couple more schools, build a couple more parks, build a couple more doctor's surgeries. Okay? Build one hospital to serve an area, an extra one hospital. All these things could have been done between 2010 and 2016 when we voted. And because you make it not about the people, you find the one thing that can turn the people against the people, okay? Friends against friends. Those who believe that, those who were fair-minded and respected immigrants for what they contributed against those who just listen to rhetoric and all immigrants need to go back to their countries. You know? I mean, I worked with somebody at that time when we voted who, a day after the Brexit vote, came in and said, thank God, now all those Somalians can go back to their countries. That's how informed we are. So I turned around to him and said, Jamie, do you know Somalia is not in the EU? Do you know where Somalia is? Do you know we voted to leave the EU? We didn't vote to leave Earth. But that's how uninformed our population is. And that's what this platform here is about. Hence my early warning system. To start warning you guys that it's coming your way in a minute. Yeah? So whereas Brazil's just nutty right wing, America's nutty right wing, costing pure lives over there, right? Now we switched it over to immigrants over there. Over here, what we're doing is we're blaming it on we're appealing to your sentiments. The NHS has got a massively high profile at the moment. What's a better way to get the people to go out without masks? Let's tell them that we need to think about the NHS rather than think about ourselves and wear a mask. I beg to differ. They're not blaming it on the NHS. They're not blaming it on immigrants as yet. I suppose there's no immigrants to blame it on because we're out the EU now. I would hate to think who we'd be blaming right now if we were still in the EU. I mean, there's still immigrants here who have made themselves residents of the country. However, now all the immigration energy is being spent after Brexit. They got nowhere to turn. So what they're turning to now, my friends, is to try and tell you guys that they don't think masks will help. And seeing as masks might not help that much, let's think about the NHS. How about we do something different, Boris and your government? How about we do what we should have done way back when and build infrastructure? How about we do what the father in my example should have done? How about we go all out to buy enough medical equipment, enough masks, right? So the people can have masks and protect themselves and protect others by wearing it, as well as your frontline workers can do it too. New Zealand managed to do it. Germany managed to do it. Canada's managed to do it. Right? Spain have managed to do it. Italy. These are poorer. Of all them countries I mentioned, only Germany is a bigger economy than ours. Of all these countries who have managed to do it, right? Only Germany have managed bigger than us. France has apologized. I keep repeating. They've accepted the mistake, which, in my opinion, the first step to changing your ways is apologizing and accepting your mistake. As long as you're making up stories to cover your tracks and to cover your mistakes, you're convincing yourself as well as those you're lying to that you got nothing to apologize for. As I keep saying to you guys, all of the left-wing governments who care, who behave how we should behave, who behaves how a caring parent should behave, are looking after their children, as in the population, are looking after their children correctly. What the right-wing government's doing, they're vilifying those who are maintaining the common sense status quo the common sense moves, shut down less. Look at what New York, this is what the US are currently testing, and this is what they need to be testing to even be talking about an open up. Take a look at this. So to date, they're only testing 150,000 tests a day. The US needs to test 500,000 per day. Now, if you guys remember, I told you guys, we were testing less than 20,000 still per week, while Germany have been testing 500,000 per week for a long time now. Their population is nearly done, which is why they're opening up right now, yeah? The US are testing only 150,000 per day. They need to ramp it up to 500,000. What Germany is doing in a week, they need to do that in a day. Why? US has 380 plus million people. Germany has 80 million people. So Germany is about 1/4, yeah? Less than 1/4 of their population, yeah? Germany is. So what they need to achieve to open up, yeah? Right now, they're testing 150,000 people a day. Of that 150,000 people, 20%, yeah? So 30,000 people every day are testing positive. Where they need to reach, right, in terms of testing, is they need to see between 3 and 12% of 500,000 people. Right now, they're seeing 20% of 150,000. They need to see between 3 and 12% of 500,000 people. So they're way away from even being ready to open. And yet this madman over there is tweeting, liberate New York, liberate the blue states. Comparing this to the War of Independence against Britain. A virus. I also showed you guys, let me show you the Georgia, the state of Georgia is opening up. Have a look at what the curve, I showed you guys the curve, right? Have a look at what the curve looks like right now. And these madmen want to open up. Have a look. Is that killing people or what? Tell me, is that not killing people? Right, now I'm going to show you what a curve flattening looks like. I kept describing to you guys, you go up, there's a plateau. Some countries are plateauing high, like New York, Italy, and Spain. New York State, Italy, and Spain, the countries, they all plateaued high. The ambition is not to plateau high, it's to plateau as lower as you can get it. So bring the curve, but you want that plateau. At some point, it's going to plateau. So you're either going to plateau at 900 deaths a day, or you're going to plateau at 550 deaths a day. You would rather plateau at 550 deaths a day. So I did show you guys, this is the original, the first time New York started to see the plateau, which I spoke to you guys about. And you can see that they were going to plateau. They were going to plateau just a little bit more before they start coming down. Now that just a little bit more, take a look at it now. And then this was the chart that I showed you last week, showing them just arriving at the plateau, but a high one. Have a look. Have a look at both, one after the other, so you get my meaning, okay? Having seen that, my people, okay, how do you explain these people that are walking around and protesting, saying we're sensible people, we're all right, we don't need to protected by the government, we know what we're doing, we're all right. Described it. When I say right-wing nuts, I'm talking about the far extreme right. I'm not talking about you, the ordinary person who votes the Tory party, okay? I'm talking about, or the ordinary person who voted Trump even. I know there's a lot of people that were tired of what was going on, so they voted Trump. But they're not nuts like the people I'm talking about. There are 32% of people in America who, if Trump killed an immigrant live on TV, murdered, they will protest if Trump got found guilty. Those are the sort of people I'm talking about, right? Why did he switch and start blaming immigrants all of a sudden? Something must have happened, right? Running out of scapegoats, right? Running out, can't blame the Pope anymore, can't blame China, can't blame the World Health Organization, can't blame the Democratic Party or Obama's last government 4 years ago. So who else is left to blame other than immigrants? So he shut the country to immigrants. Now, this is one of the reasons why he's actually blaming them as well. Look at the mood of the country. Now, what sort of a ruler will go against 58% of his country and pander to the same hardcore, right-winged, uneducated bunch who die hard support this guy? Look at his statistics lately. Now, he's 58, nearly 60%. Now, let's do the maths. 58 and 32, let's be clear, that's 90%, right? So there's 10% of people who don't know either way, you know, haven't decided, but 58%, if we allocated 5% of those last remaining 10% of people, if we give the right wing 5% and give the other people, the independents and the clear thinking people, another 5 each, give them each 5%. You take the people who are against, who want opening up, who want against the lockdown, who basically don't believe it, don't care, whatever. If you give them 5%, they come up to 37%. If we give the other side the same, the other half of the 10% that didn't decide, we're splitting it equally. We go to 63% for the other side. 63 on one side and 37 on the other side. You would think that a real ruler would listen to the 63, right? This guy is listening to his 32%, bro. This guy is listening to the 37%. If we give him that extra 5%, he's listening to those people that think like him, that actually still in their heart of hearts do not believe this is going on. Okay? So that's the people that he's pandering to. Now, you guys must recall a while ago, one of my videos the week before, and when I told you guys about Trump's backing, when rather than working hard to stop this situation, he was busy trying to stop a cruise ship from landing, because he had only 15 cases in the UK on US soil. Sorry, he had only 15 identified cases on US soil, and that's just the people that walked into hospital and then they found out they had coronavirus. At that time, there was a ship with about 3,000 or 4,000 people off the coast of California, I think it was, or Florida, and he didn't want to make these people embark onto US soil, even though there's mostly US citizens on that. I think there was only a couple of hundred British citizens and amongst some other Canadians and whatnot. But majority, probably 90%, 95% of the people on that ship were US citizens. He didn't want them to come on the US soil because he heard that ship was infested. Well, guess what? You see, since he done that, do you know that the 15 people that he had in the US has now multiplied by 500,000 times? By 500,000 times. That 15, if you times it by 500,000, that's now the number of cases they've got. There wasn't 500,000 people on that ship. So if he'd let that ship onto shore, it wouldn't have changed the numbers that was coming his way. Okay? We can't deny that this guy is causing serious death. I mean, does anybody really want to debate that now? That, you know, that he is causing deaths, that the Brazilian Prime Minister is causing deaths, that our late movement in this country has caused many deaths. Take a look at this first Sikh doctor in the UK. This guy is in the record books and he's died because of lack of care in this country. Take a look.
That was the UK's first Sikh A&E consultant. He died at the hospital in Derby where he worked. He was described as hugely respected as well as much loved. Today, expert government advisors will discuss whether the general public should wear face masks. Many countries in Europe have adopted the policy. The Mayor of London says they should be worn on public transport. But NHS providers The organisation that represents trusts in England warns that masks might be in short supply for frontline health professionals if the general public are scrambling to find them.
Now, I want you to, because again, I have to keep doing this time and time again. We talk numbers, statistics. Every number, when you hear 200 people died, each of those people is a person. Every one of those people has a family, has children, has neighbors, has cousins, has work colleagues, you know, whatever. They're a person just like you and me. Take a look at the video of just a few people who have died in the US.
Was a doctor in South Florida, an obstetrician at the University of Miami Health System. He worked in that department for more than 25 years. He joined the university after serving in the U.S. Air Force. Dr. Caldera Nieves is survived by his wife and 6 children. Joshua Pearson of Minnesota was just 38 years old. He was initially told to stay home and isolate until he felt better, but days later his mom took him to the emergency room. She says Joshua told her it would be okay. Those were the last words that she ever heard from him. Pearson died a week later, leaving behind a 7-year-old son. And this is 5-year-old Skylar Herbert of Detroit. Last month, she told her parents she had a headache. Skylar tested positive for the virus and developed a rare form of meningitis and brain swelling. She showed signs of improvement, but she kept relapsing. After 2 weeks on a ventilator, Skylar died yesterday. She leaves behind her parents, both of whom are first responders in Detroit. We'll be right back.
Now, do you guys recall the Florida governor who this week has opened the schools? I brought him to your attention last week because he said the dumbest thing I'd ever heard. We all know that young people have died from this. The guy, as of last week, early last week, mid last week, about Tuesday or Wednesday of last week, was still saying he's opening his schools this week, Monday, just gone, because he hasn't seen any evidence that anybody below the age of 25 has died. And I brought that to your attention, and I'm going to put the picture up again. Compare that guy and what he said to what you just saw in the previous video of the little black girl who passed away from corona. I remember when I put that guy's photo, I'm not saying she's in Florida or anything, but I remember when I put that guy's photo up in that video, I said to you guys, would you be surprised if by this time next week, which is now, that somebody in that state has passed away because they listened to this guy? I rest my case. Guys, look, the be all and end all is this. There is proof that you can go and explore and you can go and research yourself that the right-wing governments of this world, they have no sympathy for the masses. Yeah, the only time they get with the masses is to get you guys inflamed, get you guys whipped up against whatever it is that whatever is their agenda is at the time. Once you guys are whipped up, you're kicked to the curb. You've achieved their agenda for them. Pay attention to the governments that really care. Pay attention to the governments that do not want their people to die unnecessarily. Please, people, pay attention to these governments. Now, I'm going to end my show today with, obviously, I've shown you I've shown you the numbers and everything else and how bad this is getting. But I want to end my show today with some good news, people. The good news, have a look. Yeah, Oxford University is doing the biggest trial right now in the world. The race is on to find a cure. Hydroxychloroquine has been proved not to work. I don't know why some places in America are still trying it. Brazil tried it, killed 8 people. France have tried it and rejected it. So the race is on at the moment to find that cure, that fabulous cure that we all want. So the good news, guys, is the world's biggest drug trial right now is right here in our country, in the UK. Now, one last thing I want to put up for you guys to remember is this, okay? Is that in the state of California, okay? And this is a state, and remember, I'll tell you this. The economy of the state of California, if California were a country, if California was to split away from America, the world's rich list will be like this. America, United States of America first, with about 22 trillion GDP. You got China with between 7 and 8 trillion GDP. Then you got Japan, which sometimes is Germany. So, but at the moment, I do believe it might be Japan, okay, in third place. Then you got Germany in fourth place. You'll have California, if California was a country, in fifth place. Then you'll have France, then the UK. And lately, it's been Brazil before the UK. If California were a country, it would be the 5th largest economy in the world, people. I hope you knew this before I said this. I told you this. But this is what they are. And the population of California is massive, okay? It's larger than many countries. These guys, before they open up, the rules are this. Face coverings, a must. Temperature checks in public, dotted around the streets. A must. We saw it in that China video, right? We saw that in there. Fewer tables at restaurants. They're talking about open back your restaurant with 1/3 capacity. Between 3 to 6 months, open up the second third. So 2/3 capacity between 3 and 6 months after opening, depending on the data. See, that's why they say between 3 and 6 months, because it just depends on the data. We've seen Singapore have a second wave now. Singapore locked down, cured, face masks, everyone's wearing face masks. Open back up, and within within a month, a second wave of infections. If you're not paying attention to all this stuff, Boris, then at least make sure that your people know this information, so that when you're telling them that you would rather they don't wear masks to save the NHS, at least they are informed enough to make an informed choice. Don't suppress this type of information. And they say, we found no evidence that face masks help. All you have to do is pay attention to the countries that have beaten this thing. How did they beat it? What did they do? How did they slow the curve? How did they bring the plateau, make the plateau a lower one rather than a high plateau? How did they open up? These are things you should be looking at other places. The good thing is UK has the advantage of hindsight. Not our hindsight, someone else's hindsight. But we're not using it. We are just not using it, right? Waiters in masks and gloves. California's telling these waiters to wear masks and gloves when the restaurants do open up. They're telling them to have 1/3 capacity when they do open up. We're here telling people, and they got our London mayor so weak because that voice is so much louder. They got him saying, no, at least let them wear masks and gloves on public transport. The government's not even saying to wear that on public transport, guys. They're saying we can't see a need for it. And if you wear masks and everybody wears masks, our NHS will suffer for it. What the hell? Go and buy more masks. We should be handing out masks. We should be handing out gloves. Disposable menus. When you heard me speak about this the other day, I thought this was genius. Disposable menus. I would not even have thought of that. Whoever thought of this, guys, you have to give them props. That to me is on the same level as whoever founded Google. Is on the same level to me as whoever invented the internet. Because this is so genius. Disposable menus. Menus have been a staple for hundreds of years in restaurants. You use the menu, you give it back. You use the menu, we give it back. We use the menu, we give it back. These guys are introducing a rethink of that habit, right? They're thinking outside the box. But when you look at it in context of this, it's genius. Disposable menus. So no menus are kept. When you touch a menu, you take it away with you. If you want to bring it back with you next time you come, fine. But you don't need to, because we're going to have disposable ones when you come back. Perfect. Genius. Staggered student arrival times. Makes perfect sense. Some students come in half the day. Other students come in the second shifts. Rotate them. The same thing for companies as well. They've got the same policy for companies. There are no large gatherings still in place. Trump, you saw in the video, is talking about, they're responsible people. They're responsible people. I can see them practicing social distancing. These are people that's milling around. Lots of them don't even have face masks on. He called them responsible people. I'm sorry, but I had to throw this in. The last time I saw black people and the few of our ethnic groups who support an injustice or rise up against injustice, the last time I saw that happening in America when a black kid got killed, Fox News and Trump were calling them rioters. They were calling them irresponsible. They were calling them lawbreakers. They were calling them all sorts of stuff. When I saw the baseball players take the knee when the American anthem was playing in recognition to the injustices against black people, this guy was telling them to fire them, telling them to do this, and they don't deserve to and calling on the owners of football and baseball, American football and baseball teams to get rid of these people, these black people that were protesting against injustices. Peaceful protest, just taking the knee. I'm not standing up to an anthem that kills my people. I'm taking the knee. I'm not standing up. He called them all the names you could find to call people. In Charlottesville, South Carolina, a couple of years ago, a bunch of right-wing rednecks protested through Charlottesville, saying kill Jews, burn Jews, and all the nasty stuff I couldn't say on here. He called those people responsible. Today, with these people, he sees them practicing social distance when you and I are watching the same video and we know they're not. He calls them responsible people. I'll leave the rest to you. I'll leave it at that, okay? I'll leave it at that. Right, so guys, let me finish the show by putting up one more picture. And this is my question. The question says it all. Would you still go out if you could see it? I'll finish the show on that. All right, guys, thank you for listening. And thank you for watching. Please share, subscribe as normal, and help us get this out. More importantly, please pay attention to your government. Don't be a sheep. Think for yourself. Protect yourself. Protect your family. Whatever these people tell you to do, their kids are not doing it. I guarantee you that. Have a fantastic day. Thank you very much for your time. Take care. Bye-bye.